I found out on a Tuesday. It wasn't a screaming match, a sobbing confession, or even some shadowy figure slipping out the back door. No, it was a Facebook photo. I was standing in our backyard, robe still clinging to me, watering the grass like I'd done every weekend for the past 14 years. My phone buzzed. Notification. Tag from someone I barely remembered from her office. Curious, I tapped. The caption read, "Couldn't imagine Dallas without my real partner. Hashtag work husband, hashtag blessed." It was her, smiling wide, head tilted against Bryce. The same Bryce she swore was annoying, barely competent, and young enough to be ridiculous. 2 cocktails in hand, his arm around her waist. My hand didn't shake. I just stared, thumb frozen, water pooling at my feet. I reread the caption, then again, until it stopped meaning anything. Until all I could hear was the sound of her late-night giggles echoing through the hallway last week. That was the first time I allowed myself to believe what I'd already suspected. 3 weeks prior, I overheard her whispering in the laundry room. "If only you weren't married." It was 11:37 p.m. I hadn't confronted her then. I simply walked into the kitchen and opened the beige folder tucked behind the vitamins in the third drawer. Inside was everything Marcus, my lawyer, had prepared. Clean and aggressive, he called it. Asset divisions, disclosures, petition, and signed but dated. I wasn't hoping for betrayal, but I was ready for it. By the time she landed back in town, I'd already revoked her access to our joint accounts, changed every password, and restructured my 401k into a trust. My car app removed her login. The credit cards? She'd find out at the airport bar. I posted one comment under that photo before logging out. "Congratulations. The divorce papers are on the kitchen table." Then I resumed watering the lawn like nothing had changed. But everything had. She called that night, like I knew she would. Her voice was artificially sweet, the kind of cheer people wear like perfume, hoping to cover rot. "Hey, babe," she dragged the word out like taffy. "Saw your little comment. You're not actually mad, are you?" It was a joke. Everyone does that now. Work husband, work wife. It's just dumb office stuff. She thought charm would smooth it over. That humor could erase humiliation. I didn't respond. Just silence. She kept going. "Come on, Bryce. He's harmless. You know how it is. I was just goofing around. People love the photo." "God, you're being so dramatic." I waited until her breath ran thin, then calmly said, "Check the kitchen." There was silence on the line. Then, a thin, nervous laugh. "Oh my God. You didn't actually. This is a joke, right? You're not serious." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Let her mind do the math. That's when her voice dropped the act. "Okay, Scott, this isn't funny. I'm in a hotel. People can hear me. Can we just talk?" I ended the call with 3 words. "Take care, Alice." Then I muted her thread and got back to reviewing her travel receipts. She never thought I'd noticed the Lyft trips billed to our joint account in cities she wasn't supposed to be in. The next morning, I sent an email from a burner account to her company's HR. Subject: inappropriate conduct. You decide. Attached: the photo. Metadata intact. Caption included. No signature. No explanation. Just enough fuel for a slow, quiet fire to catch. I didn't need revenge. I needed accountability. And I knew exactly how to make it look like it had come from someone else inside the company. By noon, the Facebook post was deleted. By 3:14 p.m., I received a message from Dawn, her coworker. "Bro, HR opened a case." And somewhere in a Dallas hotel room, Alice was probably still sipping her cocktail, thinking I'd gotten over it. She had no idea her career had just stepped onto a landmine. She came back a day early. That was her tell. Alice never returned early from trips unless there was something waiting on the runway. Guilt, maybe. Or panic masquerading as concern. The Uber pulled up just before 6 p.m. I was sitting on the porch, a glass of water in hand, a lemon slice floating at the top. She stepped out wearing oversized sunglasses, the kind celebrities wear when they're trying not to look like they're in trouble. Her key didn't work. She jiggled the lock twice, then knocked. Not frantic, just confused. Like the house had forgotten who she was. I stayed seated, watching. She turned. "Scott, seriously?" "The locks are changed," I said calmly. Marcus advised it. Her hand dropped from the doorknob. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder like that was the problem. "What is this?" she asked, voice strained. "You can't just lock me out of my own house." I raised an eyebrow. "Is it still your house?" Her mouth opened, closed. No script, no audience, just silence. I need to come in. We need to talk. I nodded toward the garage. There's a chair in there. Take it. Or you can sit on the step. Either way, this isn't that kind of home anymore. She stepped back, staring like she didn't recognize me. You're being cruel, she said finally. I sipped my water. No, I'm being clear. The next morning, her work laptop pinged. I knew Dawn would come through. A screenshot hit my inbox at 8:06 a.m. Subject: HR compliance violation, investigation opened. Alice had always bragged about how airtight her reputation was. I don't break rules, she'd say. But Bryce? He was new, promoted under her guidance. And their little Dallas photo op had exposed everything: romantic impropriety, power dynamics, corporate liability. By 10:30, her keycard access was disabled. And at 11:12, I got a text. We need to talk. Please. I let it sit unread for hours. Not because I didn't want to respond, but because I wanted her to feel the kind of silence that builds like pressure behind the eyes. The first card declined at O'Hare. Alice had flown back in on a one-way ticket, thinking the storm was behind her. She tried to buy a latte before boarding and got a chirpy, automated decline message. She blamed the card reader, the barista, the airport Wi-Fi. But deep down, I know she knew. I had removed her as an authorized user from both our credit accounts the night I posted the Facebook comment. It took 6 clicks. One confirmation email. No tears. She texted me again that afternoon. Did you cancel my cards? I didn't reply. That evening, she tried logging into our joint banking account. I know this because I watched the login alert ping my phone. She failed the security question because I changed it from first pet's name to what was never yours. The answer was trust. She didn't even guess. The silence was deliberate. For years, Alice had trained me to react, to fix, to apologize first and argue later. It was reflex, muscle memory from a marriage where peace was bought in installments of self-erasure. But silence was power now. By the end of the week, her access to the car lease was gone. My name was the only one on the insurance policy. I gave the dealership a call and told them I'd be removing the secondary driver. No reason given. Just a polite request from a calm man who sounded like he knew exactly what he was doing. She tried calling again. Blocked. She emailed. Ignored. She posted something vague on Instagram. Growth hurts, but clarity heals. I almost laughed. Bryce unfollowed her 2 days later. Saturday morning, Don called. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. HR escalated, he said. They pulled her into a second meeting. Different floor. Legal was present this time. Did she cry? Didn't look like it. Just kept saying, "This is a misunderstanding." But the director said she'd breached a code. Power imbalance. Public conduct. He hesitated. They're preparing her exit paperwork. I nodded, staring out the window. The sprinkler was running. The hydrangeas looked overwatered. She doesn't know yet, Don continued. But they're just waiting to finish internal reviews. She's toast. I almost thanked him. Almost. Instead, I said, let me know when it's official. And I hung up. That night, I opened the kitchen cabinet, the one she never noticed I had repurposed. I pulled out the manila envelope marked Schedule A. Inside were the trust documents for every financial shift I'd made in the past 3 months. The house, refinanced, under a new LLC, one she had no stake in. Her name was removed during the last cycle of paperwork she didn't bother to review. The retirement accounts? Moved, shielded under a trust with a trigger clause. In the event of infidelity or abandonment, full control reverts to the primary trustee. Me. The brokerage accounts? Split. Not equally. Strategically. Enough left in the visible ones to keep her assumptions alive. The real assets had been moved 2 weeks ago under advisement from Marcus. I slid the folder shut. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like subtraction. The careful removal of someone who had long since exited the marriage in spirit, long before she ever did in flesh. Sunday, 2:13 p.m. She showed up, unannounced, uninvited, standing on the porch in a wrinkled blouse and panic in her eyes. "Scott," she said softly, "can we talk?" I didn't move from the doorway. "I don't think there's anything left to discuss." She glanced behind me, like the furniture might plead her case. "You've made your point," she said, voice tightening. "But we need to be adults about this. We have shared assets. There are things to untangle." I tilted my head. "There's nothing to untangle. You cheated. I separated. Everything else is arithmetic. Her face tightened. I didn't cheat. It was emotional at most. You're blowing this out of proportion. I smiled. Not kindly. You kissed him in a hotel lounge and called him your real partner on a public platform. Your employer agrees with me. So does your HR file. And Bryce? He's already denied everything. Threw you under the bus in a memo I happen to have. She froze. I continued. There's no division of assets. You signed over your rights when we refinanced. Your name is no longer on the deed. You missed the fine print. You wouldn't. I did. 2 weeks ago. She took a shaky breath. What about the accounts? Which ones? Her voice cracked. The savings. The retirement. I met her gaze, flat and cold. You'll receive a full report. Marcus will send the documents. You'll find a line item labeled irreconcilable disrespect. That's the only thing you've earned. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just stood there, breathing heavily. Then she whispered, I never thought you'd be this cold. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You thought I'd crumble. That's your mistake. Some men prepare in silence. Her eyes searched mine for softness. She found none. You destroyed everything. No, I said. You did. I just noticed. And with that, I closed the door. No slam. Just the click of inevitability. Monday, 8:44 a.m. I received the email. Subject: Final determination, ethics review outcome. From HR Compliance, Norton and Mayfield LLP. Attached was the letter. Formal, emotionless, and terminal. Effective immediately, Alice Callahan's employment with Norton and Mayfield LLP is terminated due to violations of the company's Code of Professional Conduct, Section 12B, Workplace Relationships and Supervisory Ethics. There were phrases like failure to disclose and misuse of company time. A brief mention of the photo. A longer paragraph referencing her position on Bryce's promotion panel. The letter concluded with, this separation is non-contestable. Severance voided. Benefits terminated within 10 business days. Marcus would have called that surgical. I called it justice. I forwarded it to my private inbox, then archived it in a folder titled Closure. 10 minutes later, she called. Blocked number. I let it ring. She tried again. Voicemail this time. Her voice cracked within seconds. Scott, they fired me. I didn't even get to speak. They just handed me papers. A pause. A sniff. This wasn't fair. You set me up. She wasn't wrong. But no, Alice. I didn't set you up. I just let you speak in front of the wrong microphone. Later that afternoon, Dawn texted me. She packed up her desk. Word is she lost it in the elevator. No one offered to walk her out. Corporate life moves fast when you become a liability. She had always strutted through the office like the floor was hers. Now, she was just another cardboard box and a red-eyed exit. I imagined her riding down 24 floors with nothing but a recycled Amazon box and the dull ache of reality hitting her spine. The silence on her LinkedIn told the rest of the story. No farewell post. No, on to new adventures. Caption. Just static. That evening, my doorbell rang. I checked the cam. She was standing on the porch, gripping the same manila envelope she'd once joked was for boring paperwork. I didn't open the door. She rang again. And then a third time. Finally, I stepped outside, quiet, composed, hands in my pockets. I need to talk, she said. You've done plenty of that, I replied. HR said it was quite a meeting. I lost everything, Scott. Her voice cracked again. My job, my reputation. I nodded. And I lost a marriage. Seems we're even. She stepped closer. I didn't move. There's nothing left, she whispered. That's where you're wrong, I said. I reached behind the door and handed her a plain envelope. Inside, a printout of her lease termination notice, postmarked 2 hours earlier. It was her condo, leased under my name, paid with our joint income. She'd moved there after things got tense, thinking it gave her independence. I'd owned it since 2019 through a shell company she never noticed on the property records. I gave notice, I said. You'll have 15 days to vacate. Her mouth fell open. You're evicting me? No, I said. I'm reclaiming space. She looked down at the paper, then back at me, eyes wide with disbelief. I don't have anywhere to go. That's not my problem. I turned to go back inside. Wait, she said. Bryce isn't talking to me. I stopped in the doorway. I imagine his legal team advised silence. She blinked. You reached out to his lawyer? No. I reached out to his wife. She staggered back half a step. I didn't know. Clearly. Tuesday, 9:21 a.m. She texted me again. No anger. Just desperation. Can we meet? I want to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. The thing about desperation is, it rarely comes from love. It comes from the absence of options. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a file labeled Exit Strategy. It held every backup I needed. Email logs, GPS data from her car, copies of flirtatious emails she sent using her work address, screenshots of her financial misstatements on joint filings. Marcus had suggested I hold some leverage in case she contested the divorce. But I didn't want to fight. I wanted the kind of silence that follows a thunderclap. That night, she drove up again. This time, in a rental. Her Lexus had been repossessed. She hadn't made the payment. I watched her through the window, pacing in the driveway. She didn't knock. Just stood there, arms folded, staring at the house like it had changed language. I didn't go out. Instead, I watched her walk back to the car. She sat inside for 10 minutes before driving off into the dark. No more texts came after that. And the quiet? It was beautiful. Some revenge is loud. It thrashes and breaks things. But the kind I chose, it doesn't scream. It waits. It plans. It delivers consequences wrapped in silence. Alice didn't lose because she cheated. She lost because she underestimated the man who already knew. And now, she's alone, untethered, unemployed, and no longer the woman who walked into Dallas smiling beside a man who thought he was a secret. She used to call me predictable. But the thing about predictable men? We know exactly how to disappear, with everything. It started with a subpoena. Envelope on my doorstep, thick and stamped. Her name in bold at the top. Alice Callahan versus Scott Callahan. Petition for spousal support. I read it standing at the kitchen counter, coffee untouched beside me. She was asking for monthly alimony, indefinitely. Claimed loss of income, lifestyle disruption, dependent status. She painted herself as the injured party. A woman suddenly left without financial footing, as if she'd been stranded by a cruel twist of fate rather than years of calculated deceit. I closed the folder, then opened my laptop. Marcus had prepared for this months ago. He always said the best offense is a documented defense. And the beauty of contracts is, they don't forget. Rewind 2 years. Alice had come home waving a bottle of Pinot and a new haircut, thrilled that her friend Linda had convinced her to sign a postnup. A trending thing among their brunch group. Modern couples do this, she'd said. It protects us both. She had been so proud of herself, so sure she was being smart. I had smiled, poured the wine, and told her I'd read it. I did more than read it. I rewrote it. She skimmed the new draft. Didn't ask questions. Didn't hire a lawyer. She was late for Pilates. Signed it on the kitchen island, right next to her green smoothie. And now, that very document sat in my hands like a coiled spring. Page 6, Clause 14b, Infidelity Exception. In the event of proven extramarital activity, all rights to spousal support shall be considered forfeited, retroactive to the date of first recorded offense. And the date? Logged. Digitally timestamped. Bryce's idiotic champagne selfie had metadata that tied her hands behind her back. Marcus sent our response 3 days later. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. Just meticulous. Attached were the photos, the emails, the hotel invoices, the video Bryce had recorded, his voice on full display, whispering about next time without the guilt. Alice, laughing, responding, every frame watermarked, every document notarized. And on the final page, a highlighted clause from her signature, the very one she'd bragged about initiating. Marcus's email subject line was simple. Clause 14b invoked. No alimony due. That was a Friday. She called Sunday. Scott, she started, her voice like cracked glass. You used my postnup against me? I kept my tone flat. You brought it to me. I just made sure it worked. There was a pause. You changed it. No, I said. I just finished what you started. She laughed once. It was short. Hollow. I didn't read it. That's not a legal defense, Alice. That's a lifestyle problem. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, You really planned all this? I took a breath. Slow. Measured. No. I planned for what would happen if you kept doing what you were already doing. I gave you every chance to stop. You made your choices. Now I'm just honoring the paperwork. You don't have to do this. You didn't have to lie. She didn't reply. Just hung up. Tuesday morning. Her lawyer withdrew the petition. Officially. Publicly. Quietly. She'd gotten the message. I heard through Dawn that she was looking for work again, applying at smaller firms. No one touched her. Whispers spread fast in law circles, especially when termination letters include the phrase ethics violation. Bryce hadn't spoken to her since HR reviewed the footage. He returned to his wife. Quietly. With a counseling budget and a blank social calendar. And Alice? She was left with a car she didn't own, a lease she couldn't afford, and a reputation that wore holes like cheap fabric. But that wasn't the end. Not yet. There was one more thing. One account she didn't know existed. We called it the Restoration Fund, something I started back when things were still worth fixing. Monthly deposits. Unused bonuses. The intent had been noble, a future home upgrade, maybe a cabin out west. She had access once. Long ago. But after Dallas? I moved it. I liquidated the fund. Half went to a college grant program for single mothers in need. Women who hadn't betrayed someone to get ahead. The other half? I transferred to a new trust under a name that meant nothing to her. E. Holloway Charitable Holdings. Holloway was the maiden name of my grandmother. The only woman who ever taught me that self-respect wasn't negotiable. I left a note in my desk drawer in case Alice ever found her way back into the house. It read, "You were never supposed to be the villain. But when someone shows you who they are, believe them." Weeks passed. No more emails. No more calls. She vanished like a deleted file. There, then gone, replaced by silence and the faint scent of something burning out. I thought that would be it. I thought I had reached the final entry in her story. But endings, I've learned, are rarely tidy. And the next envelope I received? That wasn't from her. It was from the man she thought she could control. It was from Bryce. It was a plain envelope, no return address. But inside was something far from plain. A printed email thread. From Bryce. The same Bryce who'd been the other half of Alice's affair. The same man who'd vanished when the HR inquiry was launched. Subject line: "We need to talk. This has gone too far." His email wasn't sent to me. It had been forwarded by a friend who worked in compliance at a former partner firm. Apparently, Bryce had gotten nervous and tried to clarify his involvement, pin everything on Alice. Said she coerced the relationship, that she used leverage, suggested she had blackmail material. But the time-stamped messages I had, they told a different story. The videos? Clear consent. The hotel records? Booked under her account. The Uber logs? Initiated from her device. Bryce's panic was evident. But more than that, it was useful. I contacted my friend at the firm, asked him to keep me posted if Bryce started offering specifics, especially anything about financial misdeeds. He did. And what he uncovered, it wasn't just cheating. It was theft. Alice had been running a quiet scam, using her influence at work to refer real estate clients to outside consultants for a fee. Consultants who didn't exist. The payments were real. The consulting firm? A shell account, registered under her maiden name. Bryce had helped her set it up, thinking he'd get a cut. But when she ghosted him, he got scared. He sent a file, transaction logs, dummy invoices, and a single statement from the consulting firm account showing a $43,000 wire transfer made to an offshore bank. I checked the dates. They lined up with her Cancun retreat, the one she said was sponsored by a Women in Leadership program. That lie was now a felony. Marcus, my attorney, barely blinked. "Can we prove intent?" he asked. "Yes," I said, opening the oak box. "We already did." He smiled. "Then let's make her choose between reputation and record." We sent an anonymous packet to her firm's legal department, the one that included a tip, not an accusation. Check internal consultant referrals made between Q1 and Q3. Pay attention to alias names. Within days, Alice was placed on leave. She didn't know I knew. Not yet. That night, she invited people over like nothing was wrong. "You've been so good lately," she said, brushing my arm in the kitchen. "Nice to have you back." I just smiled. By 8 p.m., the guests were pouring wine. Alice played hostess, floating from room to room like she hadn't been caught laundering money under her employer's nose. And then, mid-toast, I stood. "I want to show you all something," I said calmly. "Something personal." I walked to the cabinet, pulled out the oak box, and set it on the dining table. Alice stiffened. Just slightly. Only I saw it. I clicked the latch. The contents gleamed under the chandelier. USB, photos, email printouts, credit card statements. A small brass label on the lid. Vanishing act. Nobody spoke. Some of you know, I continued, we've had a rocky year. But Alice's journey has been educational. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse. I simply slid a single photo across the table, the rooftop bar. Her. Bryce. His hand on her back. And then the USB, labeled Q3 transactions. She reached for it. I stopped her. It's not for you. It's for Marcus. The guests looked around, confused. Nervous laughter rippled. One woman whispered, "Is this part of the dinner?" Alice tried to smile. "Okay, this is getting weird." I stood taller. "No, this is getting honest." I gathered the box, nodded politely to the guests, and walked out. A week later, she called. "They terminated me," she said, voice stripped of tone. "There's a federal audit." "I might be. I need help." "I know," I said. Long silence. "Why didn't you tell me you were doing all this?" she asked. "I wanted you to think you won." A pause. "Then, what happens now?" "That depends," I said. "Check your email." I'd sent her a digital document, one line highlighted. Voluntary relinquishment of all marital claims. She signed. There was no alimony. No division of the house. She left with her name and a dented Lexus. I kept the oak box in a locked drawer. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. Because some people need to watch the flames before they understand what they burned.